Hey everyone, it's Amanda Radke, and we're back for another episode of the Heart of Rural America podcast, the show where we highlight inspiring people doing great things to strengthen their community and to strengthen this country. You guys know I'm from South Dakota, and in my home state, we have a primary coming up. Now, I don't dive into politics a whole bunch on this show, and yet everything is political anymore. When I talk on the road and I'm going to speeches and I say my mission is to keep producers on the land and to keep meat and dairy and eggs on the dinner plate, that's acknowledging that there are external threats that our way of life, that face family businesses and farms and ranches and small communities. And it's often trickling down from the federal government on down to the state and the local. And we're seeing a political divide and just a different course of action in the state of South Dakota, where we're seeing politicians kind of showing their true colors, where we're seeing politicians who are choosing corporate interests over the citizens. And at the very core of it all, and it's taken me some years to really uncover it and really realize what it's all about, is that no matter if it's a challenge in agriculture or in food or in how our communities are run, in schools or in taxes or in life, a lot of it fundamentally comes down to private property rights, to your ability as a family to own the land, your home, your clothes, your vehicle, your ability to govern at the dining room table and make decisions for your family that you see fit, to live your life without the thumb of the government pressing down upon you. South Dakota, we are seeing that come to play in real time. As a primary draws near, it is crucial that we get it right and we send the right people to peer to represent us. And today on the show, I have two of those wonderful candidates. They happen to be leading ladies out of Yankton, South Dakota. Lauren Nelson and Julie Auch, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us.
So I'm excited to visit with you both. Next week, I'll have Mark Lapke and Spencer Gosh on as well. And so in the next couple weeks on the show, we are highlighting some issues facing South Dakotans, but on a national stage, these issues, if they play out in South Dakota, there's really nowhere else to go. We are a freedom-loving state with rugged individualism who believes in the Constitution and conserving these values that we hold dear. And yet you two are running and you're telling me that those very things are under threat and under attack. So I guess to kick things off, Lauren, we'll start with you. Tell us who you are, what you're about, and why you decided to run for office.
Okay. Well, who am I? I'm Lauren Nelson. And like I told somebody last night, I said, she accused me of being a politician, all you politicians. And I said, no, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher who's running for the state Senate for District 18. And my opponent is Gene Hunoff, who has been there for 24 years. And so, what happened is, I've been watching the legislature now for really closely for 3 years. And this year, SB 201 just really put me over the top. When that passed and was signed and everything, it frustrated me. My 18-year-old son, who has been watching this legislative session as well, that was happening this winter, he was upset too, because I think even for him, he sees what the dangers in that bill and what it's going to do and how it's going to change the landscape of South Dakota, how it's going to change his future. I hope that he wants to come back and farm, or he shows that interest. And so I think he realizes that, if SB 201 is put into effect, that the possibility of him coming back to the family farm and being able to make a living and prosper like my husband and I have is in danger. And so when SB 201 passed, I tell people I got this pit in my stomach, and it was the Lord. It was the Lord who put that pit in there saying, Lauren, you have got to make some changes. You have got to go to peer and do something about this. And I'll tell you what, Amanda, I fought that feeling, and I fought it, and I fought because I thought, I'm a teacher. I'm not a politician. What am I doing? Mm-hmm. And finally, I couldn't take it anymore. And, and the Lord did not take that feeling away. And so the 15th of March, I went down to the government center here in Yankton, and I said, hey, I need a petition to circulate for state Senate. And, the thing about it is the first person that I informed that I did that was Gene Hunoff. I've had a relationship with her. Her grandchildren actually attended Missouri Valley Christian Academy, the school that I teach at. And so I didn't want her to hear it from anybody else. I wanted to hear her for me to be the one to tell her. And I just told her, I said, hey, I'm going to do this. And the main reason is SB 201. I can't just sit by and not do something. And just to let this happen without me fighting and, making some changes.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And if you guys aren't familiar, SB 201, of course, is what's been dubbed erroneously as the Landowner Bill of Rights. But what it really is a bill of sale, that our land was for sale to the highest bidder. And that bidder happened to be Summit Carbon Solutions. And it greased the wheel for a privately owned, out-of-state, foreign-backed company to come in and use eminent domain onto landowners who don't want to enter into commerce, into the climate change grift of carbon sequestration. They don't believe in using 45Q tax credits to use taxpayer dollars to line the pockets of wealthy politicians and the power players that be. And they simply want to be left alone without interference. And the government decided that they would broker a deal, that they would write terms of an easement to essentially grease the skids for this company. And it also took away local control so that counties like Yankton couldn't decide mapping and routing and things like that without the state now calling the shots. So I think a lot of people kind of stepped into this arena because of that reason. And Julie, we'll get to you in a second. But Lauren, before we do you remember, I feel like the Lord's been working on you a very long time. Do you remember how we met?
Yes, we needed a speaker for our fall banquet and auction. And so the first person that came to mind was you, because I have been a Trent Loose listener at 6:30 every morning since COVID, when we were home secluded and everything. And so I first, heard you and saw you on his shows, and just loved what you were saying. And so when we needed a speaker, I said, hey, I'm going to ask Amanda. And she came down, and I'll tell you, we had such great reaction and positive feedback from what you said. And our families just really, really, really appreciated what you had to say.
Yeah, well, I remember that, and your school is so wonderful, and the values that are being taught there and the families that are invested in their kids' education. Like, it truly is a testament. I think a reaction to kind of COVID highlighting some of the vulnerabilities in education and things that needed to be fixed, and families really getting involved. And so I commend you on that. And I was thinking we had met on the Faith Family Freedom Tour after the election, or not, just we had connected on the show. So that was the first. Okay, I was thinking.
I'm getting old. I can't remember.
I do feel that there was a lot of shifting happened with the 2020 election and COVID, and people really, I don't know, feeling a call from the Lord to do something or take action. Which leads me to you, Julie. I know. I guess. Do you remember where we first met? I really don't.
I think we first met because like I said, I'm new to this whole political scene. 2.5 years ago, was called just because was given a scorecard, Citizens for Liberty scorecard, and basically called to do something because of the way that we were being represented in our district. I just couldn't tolerate it anymore, and basically said, if nobody else runs against these yahoos, I'm going to run against them. And turns out that I threw my hat in, and by the grace of God was elected. And he put me in Pierre, and he'll take me out of Pierre when he's ready for me to go do something else. But we met at a Families Feeding Families event that we had asked you to come down and speak at in Yankton. And it was poorly attended, but the people that were there, I remember.
The speaker didn't draw a crowd.
No, it wasn't because of the speaker.
Well, it wasn't your fault, but it was just it was a learning experience for and I'd never met you, but it was a learning experience for the campaign, the committee, and after that, then they started. My background is in business, marketing, radio. And now I'm into financial advising, but the event just was not very well marketed. But anyhow, the people that were there, it was fantastic. And I remember telling my husband that I had met you, and you were someone that we really need to pay attention to. So that's when I first met you. And then, of course, just back and forth, different times throughout the last 3 years. But, I've, since running and becoming a state representative, your eyes are really open to what's happening in our state.
Mhm.
And it took a lot. It took a lot of convincing and self-talking to decide to throw my hat in again. And so now I am running again for reelection in an upcoming primary. And of course, the way I go about things and the way that I basically speak my mind and tell the truth, we have, Republicans in, I'm sure it's, because of like I said, the way that I tell the truth, that they are trying really hard to get rid of and not have Warren or I elected into this primary.
Two fearless but God-fearing women who
Yes.
are conservative, Christian, and have a heart set on the truth and the Constitution. And that's why I value you guys so much. And I'm glad you brought up the families feeding families thing. So before we
Right.
talk a little bit more about your race and some of these legislative issues, one of the things I realize, or what I've told people in speeches, is if you see a challenge, the local level is where it's at. So if your county
Absolutely.
commissioners are a bunch of weirdos that don't want you to have farms or whatever it might be, we don't just get rid of the county commissioners or say the state or the federal government should now run the county. You go run for the county commission, or you get involved and you influence and you talk to them and you get engaged. And that's, so talk a little bit about families feeding families and how that came to be, because it was a political threat.
Well, it was a group. It is such a neat story. A group of about 12 family farms it was about hog barns, CAFOs.
Yep.
And about 6 of the families had put in, UPC, what is it called? CUPs. For CAFOs. And we had a set of commissioners that were behind the farmers, completely supported the ag, had a election, and they were all voted out. Mm-hmm. And the entire commission turned over because, of course, in Yankton County, we have Yankton, and then we have the lake, and that is our highest population areas. And our commissioners are not district. We don't have districts any longer. Our commissioners are at large. And so because of that, our people, the people of District 18, were able to vote in a whole new set of commissioners. And they basically said, well, too bad, you have your permits, you're not building these hog barns. And several of these farmers, these families had already started building. And they already taken out the loans. They had put this plan into their operation. And I was attending a commissioner event. I run a practice of health insurance, and I just so happened to be the county health insurance representative. And I had been attending quite a few of these meetings, and I had no idea this was going on. And I started listening, and I'm like, this is not okay. This is not capitalism. This is socialism. This is communism. I mean, we are zoned agriculture for a reason. You live in the country. You choose to live near a farm. Mm-hmm. You don't like the smell, move back to Yankton. So, and it was a battle because we understand, the commission, they set the ordinances, whether you like it or not. If you don't have enough voices, you're outvoted. And that's what was happening. And of course, it involved lawsuits. But this Families Feeding Families grew out of a group of farm families who said, hey, we need to educate the public on where their food comes from. And put together it was a hope and a prayer. And we had our first event, and we had over 580 people there. Mostly farmers, but a lot of folks that just wanted to come learn about agriculture. And we invited Trent Luce to come speak. And ever since that event, we have held an annual event, and then we also hold another event to educate people.
Mm-hmm.
And we've invited Margaret Byfield from Stewards of Liberty for Liberty, and she has encouraged me, and now I'm on her board of directors. And she is the frontline fighter for against these conservation easements, the 30 by 30. And now President Biden has pushed this even further into, he wants 50 by 30. So, and he's already acquired, since his taking office in 2020, he has 46 million acres under conservation easements. I don't think people are aware of that.
No.
So his campaign is being successful, and we have stopped it on most fronts in Yankton County, but in the state of South Dakota, he's acquired, I want to say 20,000, if not 50,000 acres in conservation easements.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's a concern, and people do not understand what they're signing. So that has kind of turned that whole education and private property rights started with Families Feeding Families and attending American Stewards for Liberty's conference in Lincoln, Nebraska. And then, of course, I spoke at the one in Dallas, Texas this past year. So it is it's a real battle, and they're coming at us at all fronts. It's not just conservation easements. It's this Green New Deal initiative. It's these carbon credits. And for those folks who love freedom and who love their, the Fifth Amendment, live life, life, liberty, and private property. I mean, life, liberty, and property. And it's all about, we need to understand that this is real, and their objective, the government's objective, is to own your property, take your property.
Right.
But they'll do it legally. They're going to do it. They're going to do it through easements. They're going to do it through easements, and they're going to do it through eminent domain.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't stand up and we don't start fighting, it's all going to be gone.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a pathway to starvation and a pathway to control.
Yes.
It's getting producers to produce nothing, whether you're getting paid for your carbon credits or you're getting paid to leave the land untouched. And yet to me, it's godlessness, it's communism, and it's anti-humanity and people. And
I was at a seminar 2 weeks ago, a financial seminar by Catherine Austin Fitz of the Solera Report. And she basically said, do not even give them a name. They are not worthy of a name. They're not worthy of a label. They're worse than any label that you can think of other than demonic. Mm-hmm. We call them the nothing, and they are the nothing. And that's who we're fighting. Mm-hmm. And, it's like I said, like we had spoken earlier, it's your financial freedom. It's the freedom to own property. Our forefathers knew. They escaped from this. They knew the nothing. They had experienced the nothing, and they put together our Constitution basically to protect us from the nothing. And if we don't start taking and breathing it in, living it, and fighting for it every day, we will be owned by the nothing. And that's what's going to happen. And it is time that we as South Dakotans start realizing and understanding that we do have power, and we can decide who is going to control us. And the only control that I'm going to ever allow to be had on me is the control of Jesus Christ, period.
That's right.
So, if whatever it takes. And so I think that we're in a situation where, Lauren and I'm running in a race against a current representative, Mike Stevens, who says the Constitution is not absolute. It's a document that maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. It's well, I'm sorry, my Constitution is absolute, and it is. So you aren't going to change my mind on that, and you're not going to change the minds of 95% of South Dakotans that. Freedom-loving South Dakotans, that Constitution means something to them, and it means everything.
Absolutely.
Right up there next. I mean, the Bible comes first in my house, and then right after that is the Constitution. So you're and actually it was derived from the Bible. You know,
That's
if we didn't have a moral standing, what would America is the greatest country in the world for a reason, and it's because of our Constitution and how we care for one another. Now, our politicians don't want you to believe that. Our news media doesn't want you to believe that. But the people of this great state are rising up, and they're saying, "We've had it. We're done. We're taking it back."
That's absolutely true. And I'm so glad you brought up the Bible and the Constitution, because to me,
Yes.
when a legislator takes that oath, they put their hand on a Bible and they vow to protect the Constitution. And yet, in this last session in Pierre, it was very apparent to me that a lot of these politicians, A, they must not know what the Bible says, and B, they must not know what the Constitution says, because their reasonings for supporting different bills were
Mhm.
based on none of those two things.
No.
Now, Lauren, you're a teacher, you're a mom, and you mentioned your 18-year-old son getting so plugged into this issue. There's a homeschool Catholic academy out of Canton, South Dakota, where my friend started it, and she had her entire class watching this SB 201 issue unfold. They were watching all the testimony online. They'd call me and ask questions after the votes. Like, it was so cool to see young people so plugged into this issue. But why did your son? What was it about this issue that caught his attention more than really anything else?
I think because his mom was so plugged into it. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that's what I talked about a lot, at home. But again, I think he realized that this was attacking our livelihood. This
Mhm.
was attacking what is near and dear to us, is our land. If we don't have access, or the rights to our land, what do we have rights to? It's a slippery slope. Like I said Monday night at the forum, it's getting the camel's nose, it's getting underneath the tent. And
Mhm.
before you know it, that whole camel's going to be in the tent, and it's just this slippery slope. And I honestly think he sees that. And of course, he listens to podcasts, that he listens to that talk about these things, and he's always been more mature than your average teenager has been, because of the fact that he's the baby, and his sisters kind of drag him along and drag him into adulthood a little bit sooner than usual. But still, I mean, it just, like I said, I think he just realized that this wasn't a bill about whatever. This was a bill about the land. And I think too, the fact is that we live a mile from my in-laws. He grew up with his grandpa and grandma a mile away, and just the stories and the hard work that he knows that has gone into making this farm prosperous, making this farm what it is today. Just the sweat and the toil, the blood, the sweat, everything that's gone into that farm. And he values that. He respects that. And he just does not want to see that, taken away.
Right.
And I want it here. I mean, I love this county. I love this part of this world. And I want the same opportunities for my children that I have. I spent all last year, I walked a mile every day on my land or wherever I was. And it was just really that one time the sun was setting in the west, and I was, in the back part of my property, and just watching that sunset. And it was so beautiful. And it just really hit me right then and there. I have to protect this for my children and my grandchildren.
Mhm.
And, I have to do this. I have the means, I have the spunk, I have, the drive to do this, and I just have to do this.
Well, and I don't think people understand this isn't just about a pipeline. I mean, you could
No.
talk about the climate change grift and the tax dollars and, the future of sustainable jet fuel or the ethanol industry or whatever. You can talk about that all day long. But at the end of the day, this SB 201 sets such a dangerous precedent for
Yes.
wind or solar or hydro or who knows, a 7-Eleven in your backyard, because
Right.
the other side, the politicians and peer that were for this, they kept talking about building the tax base and the economic development.
Yeah.
She would just say the economic development of who? because I'm not tying into a carbon pipeline. I'm not participating.
Right.
The average South Dakota citizen has nothing to do with this, but these big players do.
Yep.
They stand to gain a lot, and they're the ones funding these campaigns and getting their business into this. And so I'm really sick of the term economic development, because what it says to me is you are advocating to build bigger business by
Yeah.
building government spending, endless government spending to pick winners and losers. Whereas I believe, and I know you ladies do too, in the free and fair market, in capitalism, in innovation and business and creative ideas, and not being propped up by the government. And it's we could talk safety, we could just talk about just the absolute slap in the face it was. And I know you mentioned that vote, Lauren, when you watched that vote happen. I was watching the testimonies. I was driving down the road headed to a speech and listening to some of the most powerful speeches I've ever heard. I mean, from Representative Marty Overweg and Brandy and Carla Lems and John Hanson, and just hearing these patriotic legislators talk about the Constitution and the Bible and private property rights. And then the other side was just saying, well, we could bring more money to the counties. It was so lame. And I kept thinking, there's no way our side will lose here today. There's absolutely no way. God is on our side. This is the right side. This is the constitutional side. And yet, like a perfectly orchestrated regime does, the fix was in, the votes were in, our governor signed it, and she joined 4 other blue states, Michigan, California, New York, and which one am I missing? Illinois. She became the 5th governor to advocate for stripping local county control and negotiating a deal for a carbon pipeline Green New Deal project. How devastating. And
when I watched that, like you said, the testimony, our founding fathers would have been extremely proud of those that were speaking, like you said.
Yep.
Because they were speaking constitutional. They were speaking what our country was founded upon. And that's the other thing another reason I'm running is the fact that I am tired of looking at these committee rooms full of the average South Dakotan who has taken time off from their business, their livelihoods, whatever, like this, calving when they, the spring, they're taking time off. They're taking time away from their jobs and bringing money to their families to testify. And it was just like, they don't even matter.
No.
It
was the most, most surreal last 6 weeks of session, because every day there was 20, 30 families lobbying. Of course, they'd come over to my desk for a reprieve because I'm like, they knew they had me, but I'm like, I'd be like, hey, go talk to, I think you might have a little bit more of a headway with this representative. Go talk to them. Or I talked to this senator last night at a meet and greet or wherever we were at, and you might have a go visit with them. And they were literally ignored. And it was the day that we testified on the floor, and I spoke about the corporate taking of our land. Yep. And how Minnesota basically said, we refuse to give liberal Minnesota, was my point. That we are literally supposed to be a conservative state, and we are not standing up for our landowners. And here, Minnesota is saying, no eminent domain in the state of Minnesota for this pipeline. It's not going to be permitted. And guess what? The pipeline figured out a way to go around the people that didn't want it. And here in South Dakota, less population, supposed to be more conservative, and we would not even allow to put in the bill, no eminent domain. But what this bill does is it allows, like you said, the camel in the nose of the camel in the tent, and it is building a foundation. And being in Pierre for the past 2 years and seeing how they manipulate South Dakotans with these bills, they start, it's like, it is like we said, it's demonic. They've planned this out. They plan this out exactly how they're going to do it years in advance. They passed the surveying bill back in 2012. And that surveying bill is a complete and total, it should be illegal. how they can show up on your place, deliver you a letter and say, well, whether you like it or not, we're going to be here in 30 days and we're going to do whatever we want to your property. You better open the gate. And if you don't open the gate, we're going to basically cut it down. I mean, and they have every right to do it. It's criminal. It's horrible. Our surveying bills, our surveying laws, and the laws that they passed, all it did was reinforce their right to come on your property. That's all it did. It reinforced their opportunity to come onto your property without your permission. We're going to tell you exactly where we're going to go now, but you still don't have anything to say about it. I mean, it was a joke. So this whole landowners bill of rights, it took rights away. There's nothing there. They didn't give the landowners anything except a slap across the face and say,
because let's not forget, those legislators, they talked about giving us rights. And I want to say, pardon me, but you are not here to grant me rights.
Nobody gives me rights. Those come from God.
The Constitution, and you are neither one of those things.
Right.
You are here to uplift both of those things, and you are failing. You are negotiating and brokering a deal, period. When they finally slapped lipstick on the pig and called it the Landowner Bill of Rights, it did. It felt like a slap in the face.
Yes.
They could not win on their own arguments. They knew the optics looked terrible. And so they just stole our talking points, put a fancy name on the bill that's basically a marketing tactic so they can go on the news and say how great it is. And it's a lie, and it's a lie, it's a lie. And I remember after that bill went out through and the governor signed it, I was out doing chores, feeding cattle with the kids. And I too had this beautiful sunset. Our creek rolls right into the James River Valley. And to the west is a Poet ethanol plant that, guess what? That pipeline is coming my direction, not through my land, but through neighbors. And I just thought, man, everything I've worked for, all the sacrifices I've made to buy this land, to build these dreams. And it's taken a lot longer than I'd like because I'm not asking for a hand up. I'm just trying to do this the honest way by building businesses. And I have dreams for a kid to build a house or for us to open up a farm stand or whatever. I have dreams. And now my dreams can be taken away because a foreign-backed, privately owned out-of-state company has more money to throw at it. Like, do I not control the land beneath my feet? Like, wow. So that brings me to, ladies, the referendum, because at that moment I felt hopeless, right? You're just like, wow, we got our butts kicked, the big money, the big politicians, they win the day. And yet, everywhere I go, the grassroots crowds grow. The momentum of the people grows. The truth will not be suppressed.
No.
And we have an opportunity to grab the veto branding iron that's collecting dust in Pierre and to veto this bill ourselves, we the people. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about this referendum. Where are we at? What are we trying to get accomplished? And we're kind of getting to the tail end of a deadline here as well.
Right. I'll tell you what, I think Julie can talk more about where the location of, where they're at with total signatures and what's going on. But I'll tell you what, my husband is not the most political, get involved kind of guy. He'll support me. He'll put, and he went to town with these petitions for this referendum. And I think he got I think he had 3 or at least 4, maybe even 5 pages front and back. He did 5. Okay. Yep. So, and what was the amazing thing about this, Amanda, is the fact that his petitions had Republicans, independents, and Democrats. It wasn't just all Republicans, everybody, has heard about SB 201. And second of all, they don't like it. They do not like it. And one of the things, too, that I look back and I see God's hand, you know what? If SB 201 had not passed and had, got cut down, I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we would not be going around getting these petitions and waking people up. And I look back and I think the Lord's hand is in this. He said, you know what? I'm going to let this fly so that I can bring more people to the table and get more conservatives out there to peer, wake some more people up. Because the problem is the fact that people don't wake up until the building's being built or the dirt's getting moved. That's too late. It's too late. Mm-hmm. And we got to start before that. And so, yeah, it all walks of life do not like this SB 201.
Right. You got to know when it's a bipartisan and the entire state
Yep.
is mad. Like you messed up. You tried to package it pretty. You tried to put a bow on it, but people are seeing right through it. They're tired of being gaslit, and the truth will not be suppressed. And we will have our say. There's going to be
Right.
a lot of money thrown at this to make it look like we're the bad guys here, but the truth, it cannot be twisted. And so, Julie, tell us about this referendum process. How does this work? How do we ensure that we, the people, get a say?
Well, the biggest thing is to, if you do not or have not signed the referendum, find someone that has, I think it's South Dakota law. Oh boy, that's the problem. I don't know the website. South Dakota landowners. Do you know what it is, Amanda?
So look, a simpler way to say it is South Dakota, sdnotforsale.com.
There you go. sdnotforsale.com. Yeah, there you go.
I don't remember the acronym either. It's way too long. But sdnotforsale.com.
There you go. South Dakota, sdnotforsale.com, and basically make a phone call, because we cannot accept a signature over an email. It has to be done face to face, eyeball to eyeball, with someone who is carrying a petition. And everywhere, I do believe I collected 25, if not 30 petitions just alone. And it is, the numbers keep coming in, and very rarely, every once in a while, when I'm talking to someone who is unfamiliar with the bill, I think I've been turned down twice. And I myself have turned in, I want to say 4 or 5 completed petitions. So it is, when I go to a town hall or I go to a council meeting in some of our smaller towns in District 18, I'll lay the petition down and say, hey, it's up to you. Not one council member has said I won't sign it. Not one fireman has said I won't sign it. Every single person that I've asked and educated them on this bill have said, I will sign that. I will sign that. And I said, just need to be a registered voter in the state of South Dakota. And I am hoping, of course, we don't know as of right now where we're at on the progress. I think the people in charge are afraid to say how good we're doing, because they're afraid people will stop talking about it, stop collecting signatures. And that's what we need to do. I want to turn in 100,000 signatures. I want to turn in as many signatures, way over 25,000 that we're hoping for. We need the Secretary of State, the governor of South Dakota, to realize we mean business. Mm-hmm. We mean business. You screwed up. Not only do you shoot dogs and goats, but you screwed up here. You screwed up.
You know what the wild thing is South Dakotans are more mad about the stripping of our private property rights than the silly lies and stupidity in that awful book. Like, because everywhere across the country, people are like, oh no, what's the government doing? And I'm like, well, let's talk about the fact that our land has been for sale to the highest bidder. We're mad about that.
Well, and our land is being ripped out from underneath of us, and is for sale to the highest bidder. Right. And she doesn't care. And she doesn't care. And that woman ran on private property rights. That's what she ran her campaign on. And I am so disappointed in her. I am disappointed in that fact that she ran on private property rights, and we waited patiently as legislators to please just give us a hint that you will support these farmers these ranchers, these farmers that are coming here to Pierre, spending their time away from their farms to talk to you. These are the people. These are why you are in office, and you literally are ignoring them.
We had rallies. We had a January rally in a blizzard. We had one in the summer months.
Yes, Leola. Right. We've had numerous rallies, and throughout the state, Rapid City, in Canton, in all Aberdeen, all over the state, all throughout the last 2 years, and not once did she acknowledge the fact that we were actually against it. And well, because you know what, she'd already cashed her check. I mean, let's face it, she already cashed her check. It was a done deal. And that's where politicians get their name. But it takes people who love the people and the land more than the money. And that is what was so disturbing to me. And I broke my leg in session, so it was a little bit more difficult to get around. And
You still worked your butt off, though, even on wheels.
Yeah, me and my little scooter. But I tell you, it was so disheartening how they totally ignored the people. And we have to rise up. We have to say, nope, not happening here. And I was just as guilty as everyone else. I mean, I didn't really pay attention to politics in our state. You elect people to send them to peer to represent you. And I guess that's when I said, I'm running. This is not me. This is not my values. And I guarantee you, this is not the values of the majority of the people that live in District 18 with me. Right. And that is what we have to do. We have to decide, how am I going to be a part of this? How am I going to do my part to make sure that my state, my family stays the way it is, as we keep South Dakota the way it is? And so what? So what if we don't have big economic development? And they say, oh, well, you won't have the tax base. Well, you know what? Hey, I could see it'd be fine with me if a few programs were cut. I mean, how necessary are they? And how much are they actually helping our state? Or are they inhibiting our state? Or are they advertising our state to these big corporations and saying, you know what? Hey, yeah, come on in. We are for sale. No, we're not. Right. And we the people have to start letting our voices be heard and basically saying, no, not here, not in South Dakota.
It's a great education of do your due diligence. That a politician can say a lot of things on the road and on the campaign trail, but actions speak louder than words, and you have to follow through and understand, are they practicing what they're preaching? You can claim to be a common sense conservative or whatever the buzz phrase is, but if you're not living it, breathing it, and following the will of the people backed by the Constitution, you are serving something else. And I don't know, it can be a lot of different things. And I will say on the governor, I felt like, I know for myself, I kept the door open far and wide the whole time. The gate was open for her to walk through it. Right. I pled with her. I had it out in the media. I said, cowgirls don't sit on the fence. You got to get off the fence. You got to choose the side of the landowners. You have to. Like, this is freedom. And you have the whole Capitol full of farmers and ranchers here. And they're asking for three things. They're asking for maintain my private property rights. Don't take away local control. And please, no eminent domain for private gain. And yet, one by one, every bill that would have safeguarded those things was knocked down and killed swiftly. And every bill that would prop up this project and the many to come was pushed through like a perfectly organized and well organized, little act. And then we're told this is what's supposed to keep us happy. But the people of South Dakota are not happy. And that's what's risen to what I would consider two very real cowgirls who have gotten off the fence, who are getting into the arena, who are willing to take the arrows and the daggers and the attacks that will surely come your way, and to do it with principle and grace, knowing that this is a life worth fighting for. This right here, if you guys, as we wrap up today's show, and I wish we had another hour to talk, I really wish we did. But this highlights what the heart of rural America really is, that we can wish and hope and pray that politicians will fix our problems, or we can be the solutions that we need to see. And these two women on with me today are not politicians. They are leaders. They are Christians. They are conservatives. They are constitutionalists, and they are Americans. And that's what we do as Americans, is we fight for this country and the future we want to see. So thank you, Lauren and Julie, so much for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you.
Good luck with the primary. Get out and vote on June 4th in South Dakota. And by golly, if you're listening to this out of state, take this as a warning of if this hasn't come to your state yet, it sure is on its way, or it's already in action and you may just not notice it yet. So start paying attention, start asking the tough questions, and start saying, hey, not in my state, not in my community, not for my family. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the Dusty Trail, and let's get you to Pier this January.
Sounds good.